Hello everyone and welcome back to Perth South Model Railway. In this video, part 2 of signalling the layout, I'm going to show how I went about building this gantry signal which sits at the end of platform 6 and 7. The real gantry was erected as part of the 1962 Perth re-signalling scheme and originally had 3 signalling heads, one for platform 6 and one for platform 7, which are still there to this day, and then a third one for the down passenger loop line. Now this track was actually removed or decommissioned many years ago and subsequently became another of the carriage sidings in that area of Perth Station. And those carriage sidings have now been removed, leaving just one single track which leads through a modern day carriage washing plant. Now I've modelled the signal as it was in the 1960s with the 3 heads. However, I don't have a down passenger loop and instead have the extra carriage siding. So technically my signal isn't quite correct for what I've got, but rule number 1 applies, and like many things with model railways, it's a bit of a compromise. Another thing to note is that in the past couple of years the access and walkway arrangements in the gantry have been renewed. This presumably because the existing arrangements were in poor condition, but also to bring them up to modern day health and safety standards. This photograph from 2018 shows the original arrangement with a lightweight ladder and handrails covering the positions of all 3 of the original signals. I've prepared a scale drawing of my proposed signal gantry. Now I've done this after taking a number of measurements on the layout and studying the photographs. The dimensions of the components that I'm using are probably not quite the same as the reality of the steelwork on the prototype, and that's partly because of the plastic materials that I have available to do this, and in model form they just have to be that little bit chunkier to take the strength of spanning across between the uprights. I've also prepared at the bottom, and it's not clear exactly what this is, but it's actually a 4:1 scale sketch, so it's 4 times what the real components are, to show how I'm actually going to fix the signals onto the gantry. But hopefully all will become clear shortly as the build proceeds. So I've prepared some plastic components to make up this signal gantry, and I'm using Plastruct plastic components, a mixture of 6.5mm I-beams, slightly smaller 4mm I-beam, and a channel section which is 4mm channel. So I've cut out the main components. These are the uprights. The upright on the platform side is slightly shorter because it's actually on the platform ramp, and I've cut an angle on the end of it for the platform ramp. These components here are going to be used to hold the main aspect of the signal, and one hole is to hold the locating stud in the bottom of the signal head. The second hole is for the wires to pass through. This is one of the main horizontal channel members that span between the uprights. So I'm going to attach the uprights to it. I've taped it down to my cutting mat, and I'm using the 1 centimetre squares in the cutting mat to help make sure that everything's lined up. This is the upright for the platform side, and I've cut a small hole on the top of it to allow some of the wires to pass through. So we're going to use plastic weld to join the various components, and let's get on. That's the main structure of the gantry complete, and so now we go into some of the smaller bits. I've left the base of the stanchions at the moment, just in case I need to alter the height once it's on the layout. I think that is about the right height, but I do have the option to lower it slightly if there's room to do that. However, in the meantime, I'm going to make up some of the smaller brackets that actually hold the signals onto the gantry, and we'll now get on with putting those together. For the maintenance walkways in the gantry, I'm using a 20 thou piece of plastic card, and I've stuck some track pins into it, and I'm going to try and glue thin wire to the top of the track pins to represent the top railing round the top of the walkway. Hope this works, not sure if it will or not, but let's see how it goes. I've used 0.25 wire, the same wire actually used to wire the signals, and managed to super glue it to the track pins. And actually it's not too bad, it's not entirely straight, but it's nice and light looking, so I think that's going to do. Once it's spray painted, it should fit in with the gantry quite well. To create the signal aspects in this gantry signal, we're going to once again use similar components. We're using the Train Tech theatre indicator, we're using the Econ ground position signal with nano LEDs from DCC Concepts to form the calling on and shunt signal, a subsidiary signal. This time for the main aspect, we're going to use the Berco BH09 signal head. So this is a head-only kit, and it's got longer wires, which makes it good for fitting on a gantry signal, where you have to loop the wires across the gantry and down the stanchions. And it's also got one common cathode linked to all three lights in the signal. So there's fewer wires in this than there is on the Berco standard 3-aspect signal, which is good because we've got a lot of wires to feed down from this gantry. I've now put together the theatre route indicator and attached it to the signal head, and I've built the small subsidiary signal from the various components. And if you want to see how to do this, have a look at my previous video on signalling. You can see that I've already started installing the actual signal heads onto the gantry now. The main signal head is located in a small hole in the bracket that I've attached to the gantry, and the second hole behind takes the wires from the signal. The subsidiary signal, again, the wires go through a small hole behind where it gets fixed to. Unfortunately, in this particular one, my hole was too close to the edge and it just broke through the edge of the plastic. But that's okay, because in this case, there's another hole which you probably can't see because of the light, but there's another hole up in here that the wires pass through, and the intention is that all the wires will run down the inside face of this stanchion. So here's a subsidiary signal, and we'll attach that onto the left hand location on the gantry. Now you might just be able to see the hole there, so I'll start by trying to feed a couple of the wires through. Now I've got 4 very fine wires coming from the LEDs, and the last time I did this I kind of did it by trial and error and then marked which was anode and which was cathode. The correct way really to do it is that the long wires are the anode. So I can take the two long wires, that's one from each of the two lights, and join them together, because of course we want both lights to be on at the same time. And we're going to solder on a yellow wire extension to allow the wires to go down through the signal. Now there's no easy way of soldering these very fine wires to a thicker wire over here. The only way I've found to do it is to clean off the ends, clean the insulation off the ends, and it's just a kind of painted insulation. And I'm just using a fine file for that. Trying to get it off all sides. And then wrapping the wires round the wire that you're going to solder onto. So you probably won't be able to see this. I'll move the camera around a bit. That's the wires attached to the position light signal. Now before I apply some heat shrink to these, I'm going to test them out in the transformer just to double check that the solder connections are good and the lights work. So I've got the subsidiary signal just suspended by its wires now, and I'm just checking to make sure it works, and there we are, they're both on. So that's fine, we can fix it in place now and apply the heat shrink protection to the joins. So here's the cathode wire, here's the heat shrink tubing, and we'll just slide that on. So that's it, shrunk down, it's not going to go anywhere, and it protects the join. I'm now going to attach the final signal head. I've checked the hole to make sure that the signal fits reasonably snugly into its hole. So what we'll do now is feed the wires through the back hole, just a few at a time. I'll start with the green and the black hole, the green and the black wire. Now I'll just once I make sure that's straight, I'm just going to fix that in place with a little bit super glue. Now to put the subsidiary signal in place, I'm just going to apply a little bit of super glue to the plate below the main signal, and then we'll just sit the subsidiary signal in place. Try and make sure it's straight, and just hold it for a few minutes just for the glue to go off. So I'm now going to feed the rest of these wires through the small hole so that they're down the inside of the stanchion. So I managed to feed all the wires through the various slots and gaps and holes. It was a real fiddle. Didn't want to film all the hassle I had doing it. So there is quite a collection of wires, and they're going to pass down the inside of the channel, and I'm going to cut and glue some channel sections across the stanchion, and it looks, by the time it's all painted, it'll look pretty much like what the real signal wires do in real life. Now, as I've passed the wires through, I've gathered them together into the 3 signals, and I've marked them so that I know which is which when I come to wire them all up. Still got a ladder to add to the, where are we? We've got a ladder to add to the back here, which comes up to this point. I don't have a suitable ladder at the moment, so that's something that will have to be added in due course. I've fitted some channel sections to the stanchion to hold the wires in place, and also to the soffit of the bridge section of the gantry. We've now got the numbers on for the signals as per the original Perth signalling plan, and of course these 2 signals still exist, the P95 and P94. So we've given the wires a light coat of paint. It might need more, but I think we're ready to install it on the layout now. I've now installed the signal, wired it up and tested it, so I'll finish today with some running shots of trains passing the signals. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time as I continue my journey installing signals in the layout.